Okay, guys, we're on Haggai. Last little section of Haggai is chapter 2, and reading from verse 20. Then the word of the Lord came a second time to Haggai on the 24th day of the month, saying, Speak to Zerubbabel, governor of Judah, saying, I am going to shake the heavens and the earth. I will overthrow the thrones of the kingdoms and destroy the power of the kingdoms of the nations. And I will overthrow the chariots and their riders, and the horses and their riders will go down, everyone by the sword of another. And so we have very similar words to verse 9, talking about the heavens being shaken, talking about the nations coming up against ultimately Jesus in the end. So it looks again like the pointing to the millennium reign of Christ, and ultimately Armageddon, when all the nations rally against Jesus and they try to overthrow him. And so, but remembering at the time there was a lot of persecution. If we read Ezra 4, we see that the Samaritans come and they try to take over from infiltrating within and saying, let us help you build. And we see opposition from various sources trying to instill false rumors and lies and stuff to try everything to try to destroy the temple and the work of God. And so even today we have many that come in from within and they try to destroy God's work. But it even went to the extent that the governments of the day, the kings of the day, issued decrees that the temple must be stopped. And so today ultimately Satan will come in through the powers from above, because that's where the authority is, that's where the power will be, and he will try to take over the work and destroy the work of the Lord. And so these nations will rise, but ultimately as we come to the end of the book of Haggai, we see that Christ rules and reigns, and he will demolish those nations with just a word. And so we look at wording like shake the heavens, and we see those things happening in Revelation. But I just wanted to turn to Psalm 2, which is a messianic psalm talking about Jesus, which has a very similar theme of these nations coming up against God and God destroying these nations. So let's just turn to Psalm 2. Why are the nations in uproar and the peoples devising a vain thing? The kings of the earth take their stand, and the rulers take counsel against the Lord and against his anointed, saying, let us tear their fetters apart and cast away their cords from us. He who sits on the heavens laughs, and the Lord scoffs at them. Then he will speak to them in his anger and terrify them in his fury, saying, but as for me, I have installed my king upon Zion, and there's that word Zion, my holy mountain. I will surely take of the decree of the Lord. He said to me, you are my son, today I have begotten you. And that, we can see that speaks of Jesus here in the Old Testament Psalm. Ask of me, and I will surely give the nations as an inheritance, and the very ends of the earth as your possession. You shall break them with a rod of iron. And Christ comes and he breaks the nations, and he reigns. You shall shatter them like earthenware. Now therefore, O king, show discernment, take warning, O judges of the earth. Worship the Lord with reverence, rejoice with trembling. Do homage to the Son, and that he not become angry, and you perish in the way. For the wrath may soon be kindled. How blessed are all who take refuge in him. And so today we need to take refuge in Jesus. We're either for him or we're against him. We either join the forces of evil and darkness and the kingdoms of the world, and we fight up against the Son. But ultimately God will win the battle, and that's ultimately where Haggai is ending. So if we look at the last couple of verses of Haggai chapter 2, verse 23, on that day declares the Lord of hosts, I will take you, Zerubbabel, son of Shealtiel, my servant, declares the Lord, and I'll make you like a signet ring. For I have chosen you, declares the Lord. And so on that day, we see Zerubbabel, who's the governor and leader of Israel at this time, and the project of the temple. But later we see Christ, who rules and reigns from the temple in Jerusalem. And this is certainly a picture of Christ. The signet ring, what does that represent? That represents a seal. It represents power. In those days, whoever had the signet ring, like Pharaoh would give the signet ring, Pharaoh gave it to Joshua because he trusted Joshua, and with that signet ring, Joshua had power to issue decrees that could never be revoked. When the king issued a decree that Daniel be locked up in the lion's den, it couldn't be revoked. And when that signet ring is in your hand, when you become that signet ring, whatever Christ says, whatever God says will come to pass. It cannot change. And so God will rule and reign one day. The nations will be destroyed one day. And so we need to be on the side of Christ. So I trust that you choose, and we choose Jesus this day, who is the one who will overthrow in the end. And he will become part of that line of Zerubbabel. Well, he has become part of that line. Because Zerubbabel was the line of David, Jesus also the line of David. And so this prophecy has eternal value and significance. So I trust you have a wonderful day. God bless.